Fractured Online is a new top-down sandbox MMORPG, and in this beginner's guide, I want to go over everything you need to know for your first few days. So making your character, the stats, the races, the different planets, how to craft, build your first house, where you go to learn skills, how the talent tree works, things like that. And if this has helped, subscribing to the channel helps me out a ton. I cover a lot of MMOs and I make guides on them as we go. So let's get started first with the races and karma in Fractured Online. There are 3 races: humans, demons, and wildfolk, and each race comes with its own skills, stats, and starting area, and uniquely its own set of rules for PvP. So first up, the humans. The humans are the jack of all trades. They gain a base +2 to every single stat, so you can play as any build. You won't be the best out of all the different races on certain builds, but you're a great starting point because you can do pretty much everything. They live on a neutral world, and any race can jump between different worlds, but their starting point is a neutral world ruled by a karma system. Players can turn red here and PvP at will. You can be, as soon as you lose your new player status, you can be ganked by another player. But good players will become sheriffs and try and stop them and jail them and collect bounties on them. There are lots of easy areas here to level up, gain skills, and it has some of the largest and busiest cities. The PvP rules for humans are they have free will, meaning they can actively play as any alignment. They can be good, they can be evil, they can be neutral, and they can change this whenever they want. Next up are the wildfolk. Wildfolk are animal races. They include tigers and deer as their subraces, and the subraces give bonuses to strength, dex, and intelligence based on which you want to play. So for example, if you choose the deer subrace, you can get +3 to intelligence, a 5% bonus to magic damage, and overall you'll probably be the strongest mage class. Wildfolk, however, are ruled by morality and can only be good. You cannot turn evil. You can't turn red and just go fight new players against their will. You can only fight against neutral or red players. You start on the world of Terra, where PvP is also consensual. This is the perfect place for a new player, as you won't have to worry about red name players attacking you. And then finally, it's demons. At the time of making this, demons are still in development, but when they release, they'll be fully evil players with their own fully evil continent. So they can't be good. I assume they can't be sheriffs. And in the demon world, it will just be a free-for-all on PvP. Now, I can see this get asked a lot in the Discord and in like the help channels, and I just want to talk about this. What do you do first? And more importantly, what do you do while you have this new player protection? So a lot of people haven't played a sandbox game before. A lot of people are new to that kind of genre, and this one just drops you straight in the game. You finish the tutorial and there's nothing else. So let's go over some of the things you should get done, or that would really help to get done while you're a new player, especially with this new player ribbon where you can't be PvP'd for 40 hours or until you've got a certain amount of knowledge. So you probably want to think about what build you want to be, what skill to take, and Fractured Online doesn't really help you out. There's no build, there's no predefined things you can take. There are starting abilities. You can be a gladiator and get some sword skills. You can be a pyromancer and get some fire skills, but that's it. You need to learn how to build your own character and try different things. The first thing to understand is stat points, because that determines your character, and it's the hardest thing to move away from. So a sword skill might scale with strength, a fireball will scale with intelligence, and then a shot with a bow will scale with perception. So although this is a classless game where you can do everything, you are confined by your stat points. You are confined by what stat points you take. So make sure you take ones that benefit what you want to do. So if you want to go into sword fighting, you're going to need strength. And then also look at the complementary ones. So if you're a sword fighter, you probably also want constitution, because that's your health. You probably also want stats that give you accuracy or attack speed. So it's really important to have that in mind. You can change your stats on a character every week. So every week you can make new stats. So keep that in mind when you're looking at making your character. But other than the stats, everything else can be changed at free will. So the talent tree is another way to progress. Every time you fight a new enemy and gain knowledge, you will level up your rank and gain new talent points. And these can be put anywhere on the talent tree, which is laid out by the different stat points. Important things to know here are that there are complementary stats. So if you go between strength and constitution on the talent tree, there's a little section there of really good talents. It's the same with if you go between intelligence and wisdom, because they're next to each other on the talent tree, there are really good talents between them. So these complementary stats are important. It's good to look at this when you're looking at making your build and what you want to go into. Don't worry about messing the talent tree up though, because you can move talents around freely at a campfire, and you can save templates to change them whenever you want. And then the last thing is the skills. You need to learn new abilities to grow as a character and to make your build. And that comes from defeating enemies that have them. Each enemy has their own unique skills and abilities, and you physically see them using. This is the coolest part about this game. You go up to, say, a goblin shaman, and you see him lay down a totem and hit you with a fireball. The more you fight him, you will build knowledge on that creature. Kill him once, you might get 5%. Once you get to 20%, you might learn one of his spells. Get to 40%, you learn his next spell. And that is for every single creature in the game. When you've got 50 hours in and you're fighting these big fire elementals in the volcano, it's the same thing there. So this level of progression continues all the way. So it's really important to try and look through your ability bar and highlight, and you can see what enemies have those abilities and then go hunt them down. You can look on the wiki, you can ask in help chat where they are, or you can just roam around and find them. But this is one of the main ways to grow your character, is finding the things for the abilities you need and gaining knowledge on them. Okay, the next thing I'd recommend is building a house. So let's go over it. This is probably the most important thing to do while you have your new player protection, is getting established somewhere on the map and building yourself up. A brand new player, you can just store your stuff in a town, but having a house lets you build multiple chests, craft all your own items, have all your own stations, and you just have the freedom and safety away from other players. Before you build a house, you have to claim a plot of land, which is simply finding an empty plot and paying 2,000 gold to take ownership of it. You can claim any plot in any location on any of the worlds, even if you didn't start there. Even ones near player towns. The only restriction is that the plot is not already taken and that you have the 2,000 gold to purchase it. And you can only own one plot per account. So if you make a second character, you're still confined to that first plot of land, I believe. Once you have the plot, you can build a house. You need to start building it. So you go to your building window, select housing templates, and drop it on your plot of land to begin building. And this is kind of just pretty easy because it just takes you through the whole thing. But what you want to do here is you want to build up a wagon. So go into your blueprints again, build up a wagon, put the things into it, and then just attach this to your horse and go fill it. It's much easier to do this than going and collecting like one piece of wood at a time. So yeah, go out on your wagon, get all the wood, get all the stone, everything you need, and build up your house. And then once you've built your house, it's kind of a long process, but once you've done it, it can't be destroyed. It'll take it away from you. It doesn't degrade. You just have to make sure that you pay the tax on it, which is a few thousand gold every week. But once it's done, you can start placing the things inside it. So you can start placing the crafting stations and all that stuff. And this is what I'd focus on. Number one is get a fireplace down. Get one of those long fires down. This lets you rest any grey that you've got. You can rest at your fireplace or other people's fireplaces in towns. But yeah, this will let you rest in your own house and refill your health. It will let you cook food, and it will let you reset your talent points and pick new skills. Next, I would build things that work towards what you're crafting. And I think that's something important to talk about now. Crafting. Let's go over a crafting guide. If you want to craft weapons and armor that dealing wood, cloth, leather, metal ingots, the process is always the same. You have to refine the raw materials, craft the item, and then enchant and imbue it. So let's go over it all because it is very confusing. I think it's almost overcomplicated in this game, but it's fun and it's interesting to do, especially for the first time. So first up with refining, you need to collect raw materials and refine them. And you need to use specific machines to refine them, meaning you either need your own house or you need to use a city's access stations. Some cities have these buildings as free-for-all, but some are member-only, so you may need to apply to join a city if you don't want to build your own house. And once you've done that, you just go into the room, press apply to be citizen in the main room in the city, and then you can use their different stations to process materials. Cloth and silks can be refined on a weaving station, leathers in a tanning tub, and wood can be turned into boards at the wood refinery. Ore can be smelted in the smeltery, so you just mine copper, tin, that kind of thing, and heat it up. But here's why you kind of want to be, in a guild in a city, or you want to have your own house, because ore and wood also need a second product. They need, the smelter needs coal or charcoal. Coal is not, there's not much of it on the map and it's pretty contested, but you can make charcoal yourself at a charcoal pile, which is a building you can just drop in your house, fill it full of wood, let it burn for 8 hours, and then just chuck the charcoal in the smelter, saving you having to worry about coal. So it's very important to have your own house for this. And it's the same for wood. Wood needs tar, it needs polish, which comes from tar. And that's a byproduct of this charcoal station. So yeah, I really think getting a house is important if you want to craft, but if you join a guild that has a big city and you can use that, that works too. And then once you've got these raw materials, I think that's the hardest part. Getting the raw materials and advancing them is the hardest part, because they start easy. Get ore, get iron, make an iron bar. That starts quite easy. But when you get into like mithril and sun steel, things like that, it gets really complex and it's quite confusing. But once you've refined these rare and good materials, you need to craft them, and it's much easier to craft. So for a weapon, if you've made iron, you just make an iron sword. If you've made mithril, you just go make a mithril sword. There's no time gating, and that's pretty much all there is to know. The only thing to advance your crafting is crafting more of it. So there's primitive gear first, which you learn in the tutorial, and then you can move up to tier 1 and tier 2 gear. And the more you craft something, the better the quality of that gear becomes. So at first you have like a 70% chance to make a poor gear and 30% chance to make good or normal. And if you keep crafting the same thing, so if you keep crafting a primitive sword, eventually you'll be able to make better, like great primitive swords and excellent primitive swords. Once you hit adept at that craft, you can unlock the next tier. So once you hit 2 out of 4 in this little box in the top left, you can move from a primitive sword to a great sword or a scimitar or a long sword. And that's for every craft in the game. So plate armor goes into knight armor, you know, chainmail goes into battle mage, that kind of thing. So it's just crafting more and more and more of it. So just if you're going to do iron, just pump out more and more iron, get it crafted. And then once you've crafted this gear, it's important to know that durability is a thing and repairing doesn't exist. So every single thing you make in the game is one use. So that's important. Unlike some games like other sandbox MMOs, if you're a good player, when you die, you don't lose your gear. You just lose your inventory. If you're a red player, when you die, you lose your gear as well. If you're, you know, got bad karma. So that's very important to know, which means once you've crafted this really good tier 2 gear, if you're not playing as a red player, this gear will last you a long time. And it's really good because you can enchant it and make it even stronger. So yeah, you just go to a city, you add enchanting dust and gold, and you can turn it from, say, a great sword to a great sword +1, +2. But every time you go from, say, 1 to 2, the cost and the amount of dust required increases. So there's definitely doing a couple of enchants is pretty cool, but getting past that is very costly. The next thing you can do is imbue your gear, and this is where the crafting gets really complicated, and it's a system I think is far too overcomplicated. I don't want to go over it in crazy detail, but I'll go over the basics. So when you get a piece of gear, there are 2 imbuement slots, and as you're fighting stuff in the open world, you're going to get these drops. You're going to get bones, you're going to get powders, dust, and all these different things. And you'll see these stats on them. It'll be like 2 out of 3 fire, 3 out of 5 energy, things like that. And these are for imbuing. So if you go to an imbuing table, you can put a piece of armor on the imbuing table, and you can add these different things on and try and build out an imbuement. So a certain stat will need 4 different things, and then it's up to you to fill those with the different items you've got. So the rarest and best imbue items have like 5 out of 5 or something. You can take this even further by going to a distillery, adding crystals, making oils, and making these really powerful, fully filled imbued flasks. And then when you go to the imbuement table, you can drop in a 10 out of 10 on an item and get a really powerful enchantment, a really powerful imbuement. But I don't want to go into too much detail on all that, but just know you can do a lot with your gear. And that's pretty much the big things to cover. Then I just want to give some quick tips to help you out as a new player. So first up, I want to talk about divine rewards. So as you fight anything in the world, you have a small chance of getting a divine reward. Fighting something small like a goblin will give you a small reward. And then if you fight big things like ogres and elementals and, you know, endgame creatures, you'll get these legendary rewards. And if you right click them, they will create a random item in your inventory. This item can be a bit of gold, it can be enchantment dust to go into enchanting your gear, or it can be a recipe for crafting, or it can be an orb. Orbs are extremely important. They are probably the best selling things in the game. They're the most wanted things in the game. And all you do is you right click an orb, go into your character window, and you'll see the different orbs you've got. And one character can hold every single orb in the game. And every single orb you have, every single orb that you use gives you 5% proficiency in that skill. So if you have a pyromancy orb and you use it, you get 5% more pyromancy damage. Once you've unlocked the level 2 of pyromancy, you'll have 10% more pyromancy damage. This is like the end game way to build out your character. And these divine rewards that you get, if a red player comes and ganks you, you lose them. So use them, look what you get. If it's good, go bank it. Comes into the second tip, bank often. Go if you get 1,000 gold, go bank it. If you're not playing on Terra, if you're on the human world and you've made some money, got a good drop, a good recipe, a good orb, go bank it at your house or at a town. The next thing to say is right now, being a red player is incredibly punishing, and that's something I would warn you not against, but to know what you're getting into. Right now, if you go to town as a human and you set yourself as evil and you want to just go PvP people, you are going to have a rough time. You can go and make a lot of money PvPing people. You can make lots of gold by going to high-end areas and ganking people and taking their gold. But you're at a massive disadvantage because if you die, you lose your gear and you lose your armor and you lose your inventory. So you lose a lot. And then if you're defeated by a sheriff and lots of people are playing a sheriff, you also go to jail. And that has a cost of 10,000 gold to get out, or you have to wait up to 48 hours to be released. So being a red player is incredibly punishing, and be aware of the risks before you get into it. The biggest problem right now is that a sheriff can wear tier 2 enchanted, imbued gear, like the best gear in the game, and they can run around with other sheriff friends. Whereas you as a red player, because you lose everything on death, are probably running around in low gear. And that just creates a massive disadvantage for you as the red player. So yeah, that's something to warn you against. I know lots of people go into these sandbox games just wanting to be an evil character, and it's fun, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it, but just beware of the risks first. And that's really it. That's kind of everything I wanted to talk about in this. This is a big game. It really shocked me how good this game is and the quality it's at. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't kind of that excited for it coming out, but it's blown me away how good this was. I've got a full review down below. I'll link that if you want to see it. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun in this game, but it was very overwhelming coming out of that tutorial and just being like, now what? So I wanted to make this, if you're new to the game, you've jumped in, you're a bit confused, hopefully this helps you set your expectations. You know, getting a house is important. Go find those question marks, go get your spells, work on your build, and set your own adventure. I hope this has really helped. Let me know in the comments if it has, or if you're playing this, if you tried this, let me know what you think. And if it has, subscribing helps me out a ton. I make a ton of guides on this channel, especially for MMOs. And finally, if you're looking to hang out with more people, I'll link my Discord down below. We play tons of MMOs together. So that's it from me. Take care, enjoy Fractured Online, good luck out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.